Well, hi everybody. It's Dr. Joel Hunter here, teaching philosophy, world religions for Truckee Meadows Community College. It's week 4, folks, and we are starting Buddhism this week. Glad you're here, and I look forward to, I think, what's going to be a briefer Periscope session, unless you have tons of questions, which would be great. That's fine. But we want to do basically 2 things on our agenda today. I want to talk with you briefly about the analysis response assignment. I'm not going to do anything major with that, but I do want to touch on it. Point number 2 is I want to go over your reading for this week on Buddhism. And then the last thing I do want to cover is, well, it's kind of connected to your reading, which is going to be things to focus on in the reading to help you on the quiz. So that's the plan for today. Glad to see you all here. Yeah, yes. Roll in. You know, it was amazing. For my previous session, I had more students able to show up at 12. Now that's a different class that I'm teaching than I've ever had. So that was good, unless a lot of random people were watching, which that's fine too. But yeah, so hopefully with world religions, that my students will be able to turn out even better for this Periscope session than in the past ones. But you know, there's always the replay. So if you can't tune in live, you can always catch the replay. And yeah, so let me just start with the analysis response assignment first of all. And by the way, feel free to let's see, Dr. Hunter, I can only see half of you. Am I okay? I'm probably out of the picture. Hey, I wonder if it's because you're seeing it in portrait maybe, and I'm in landscape, so I'm way over to one side. Hey, can I get some more people to chime in on that? Because I definitely want to move into the picture if I am out of the picture. So other people who are not seeing me, who have landscape view at least. Okay, I'm getting hearts, so that's a good sign. It's true, I can see you. But you... I'm sorry I'm reading so slow. You'd think I have a reading problem. The reason is I've got a wonky setup this time. I'm using an iPad mini, and so I'm having to see this in a mirror to actually catch it. I'm hopefully getting a better picture at least. But I tell you what I'll do, since I am getting some folks who cannot see me. Right, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Just give me a moment here. Don't be alarmed. Don't be alarmed. Moving it a little closer to the camera, but it's okay. It's not dangerous. Here we go. Wait, stop, there. All right, so I'm going to move just a little more to the center. And hopefully those of you who are watching in portrait can still see. And I am going to make one more adjustment. Don't be alarmed by the size of my head. Okay, there we go. Very good. Is that better, folks? Okay, good. All right, so let me actually get to the show. Analysis response assignment. So here's what I want you to do. First of all, I don't want you to panic. It was your first one. It was probably for most of you. It was you had to do it in response to a religion that you're maybe not that familiar with. That's just an assumption. But I think most people in the course are probably not intimately familiar. I mean, from the inside, familiar with Hinduism. And so that was a challenge in itself, okay? Then you had on top of that it was an unusual assignment. It was not an essay. It was not a worksheet. It was this list of things that you had to figure out how they applied to Hinduism. You had to go sort of like it was like a hunting expedition, a scavenger hunt for these 10 points that are in your model. So that was an unusual experience for you, and I appreciate that. And so how I grade your first analysis response is going to reflect that, okay? It's a bit of an experiment for you. Hell, it's a bit of an experiment for me too. So just be aware that you don't need to panic, and that the feedback that I give you on your first one should help you then on your second one. You've got one under your belt now, and several of you wrote me and said, I don't know if I'm doing this right. It's okay. It's okay. I didn't see anything terribly wrong with anyone's. And things that I did see that could be improved, they're correctable. And so that's what we'll do. You'll get plenty of opportunities to get better at doing this. And in fact, that's what I want. I mean, if you think about what you started with on that assignment, it was a personal inventory of your own views, or you were not necessarily your own views, but what you thought were the right answers to those questions as they applied to you. And even there, I mean, you may not have really grasped what the concepts were about in the model, but as we go through our readings, I think it's going to become clearer and clearer, and you'll get a stronger sense of what the meaning of these terms are. Things like human predicament, and things like salvation, which can include things like rescue or liberation. Those are different names for the same thing. Religious concept, I mean. And yeah, so you will go through those things, forms of transformation. What does moral transformation mean? Once you get these concrete answers from the specific religions, it's going to be a lot easier to understand what's going on here when you apply it to other ones. And then when you come back at the end of the semester to doing that personal inventory again, you'll see how much you've grown in how you understand religion generally, but then also these specific religions. How did I get off on that? No idea. But anyway, the analysis response, I've got most of them from you. Some of you didn't turn them in, but I will be working on those over the next couple weeks, and I'll get those grades posted in due course, certainly in time for you to be ready to digest my comments and apply any corrections that you need for the next one, for Buddhism. Okay, so now let me move on to the points from your reading for this week. You are reading roughly half to two-thirds of the Buddhism chapter. It's through page 119. And one thing I want to point out, and there's lots of stuff we could talk about here, but I don't want to just simply duplicate what's in your reading. I want you to sort of figure this out on your own. Things like what suffering means in Buddhism and why that is the ill, the predicament that describes all human beings who have ever lived and who ever will live. And you will have to look closely at what suffering means, because here's why. There's a sort of superficial way you could take dukkha, and that would be that, well, hey, I'm pretty healthy, I'm young and pretty happy, with my life and how things are going. Hey, I'm in college, taking an awesome philosophy class. I'm not suffering. I mean, yeah, sure, I have my worries with things like finances and friends and enemies, but overall, I'm not suffering. Well, that is actually addressed in your reading of how that isn't really getting to the root of what dukkha is talking about, the human predicament, ill. According to Buddhism, we're all ill. And so in what ways does this illness manifest itself? Yeah, you know what? You can be happy, you can have things together, but let's see, what did that say? Dang it, I can't read it. Sorry. I've got to fix this because I cannot do the mirror thing. I do not read backwards well. Wow, I've got to do something about that. Anyway, so you will need to understand how it is that simply living an embodied life in the world is going to be filled with suffering of one kind or another. Okay, so that's going to be your number one point when you get further on to do the model. But so just be aware that there are ways to take terms like suffering or like liberation, like enlightenment in a superficial way, and then in an informed Buddhist way. And so that's what you're after. You're after that informed Buddhist meaning to those terms. Okay. So the next thing I want to point out is the term Buddha. Okay, so your author, as as many people do, will refer to this historical individual, Siddhartha Gautama, as Buddha, or the Buddha. And I want you to know that that's not a proper name. Buddha is a title. So Buddha means enlightened one. It does not refer to somebody's name. I mean, if I would not be given the name Buddha Hunter. That doesn't work. That's not a first name. So it is a title. The equivalence, if you want to make some comparisons to other religions, how this appears in sort of their primary figure. Okay, so in Islam, for example, there is a title for Muhammad called the Prophet. So if you hear Muhammad referenced as the Prophet said, the Prophet did, that is the language within the religion, right? That's referring to the proper title for the historical individual who has a proper name. But sometimes, the title is used as a substitute for the proper name. In Christianity, the reference to Jesus of Nazareth, or Joshua, or Yeshua, however you prefer to pronounce it, is sometimes Christ. Well, Christ is a Latinized, anglicized Greek word taken from a translation of the Hebrew word Mashiach, Messiah, which means anointed one. So the Christ is the anointed one. And when the term anointed one, or Messiah, or Christ, is applied to the historical person, Jesus of Nazareth, it's referring to him in this office, this capacity as the anointed one, the one selected, set apart. Okay? So that's how that works. And Buddha works just like that. It is a reference to him being awakened, to being enlightened. And so he is the enlightened one, the awakened one, who has forged a way for the rest of us to discover that path for ourselves, as well as reach its goal. Okay, so that is just a little point that I wanted to obsess about for a little while. Next, then, I want to talk about is your quiz. So on the quiz, let me break down for you what's going to be on the quiz. Glad you tuned in. So point number one is the first few pages, first 10 pages or so of your reading is mostly biographical stuff about Siddhartha. And so you've got 5 questions on the quiz that are pulled from that. So those are basic factual types of questions. Then there's a section called The Rebel Saint. And in this section, this is how he is a figure of reform and religious purification within Hinduism. Okay, so that is connecting Buddhism to Hinduism and showing the ways in which Siddhartha, his path, if you want to call it out of Hinduism, into something of his own, this form of Buddhism, if you want to call it that, form of Hinduism called Buddhism. Now, how that is, well, as your author suggests with the rather provocative term, rebel, he is the rebel saint, okay? So he is rebelling against certain things within Hinduism and, in a way, purifying what Hinduism had come to be in about the 6th, 5th century BCE. Okay, so in that section, there's 4 questions from the rebel saint. Then you get into the heart of what Buddhists teach and believe and practice. Okay, this is the heart of the religion itself. And so you've got 6 questions on the 4 noble truths. It's a lot of numbers. 6 questions on the 4 noble truths. So you want to pay close attention to those. Then on the Eightfold Path, which is the 4th noble truth, the Eightfold Path, there are 4 questions about that section. Okay? And then you've got 1 question on nirvana. And that's nirvana. That is from the final section of the reading, which I did not pull that much from the very last section. I think it's called Basic Teachings, maybe, or Basic Doctrines, or something like that. So nirvana, I did want to touch on in your quiz, and make sure that you have looked at the reading for that. Okay, so that's your quiz, that's your reading. I touched on the analysis response assignment and what to be looking for going forward. So are there any questions? And now I'm afraid to even take them because of reading it, but I'll do my best. Okay, so go ahead and fire up any questions you've got about the reading or anything else to do with this week. Any questions? Yeah, I'm so glad you all were able to tune in. Hold on. I'm holding. Can't promise that I'll read it. If I disappear from the screen, it's because I'm turning around to look at it right side out. I am going to change this. I am video challenged, as you can tell. At least equipment challenged. Questions. I'm holding. Here it comes. All right, I'm going to get up. So, when will we get feedback on our first analysis response time? Yeah, so I did touch on that. Sorry about the big head thing there. The first analysis response assignment, I'm going to be working on your feedback this week and next week, so you should see something by the end of next week at the latest. And what I'm going to be focusing on is just, first of all, the accuracy of your answers to the 10 points, but then also things, maybe corrections to how you're understanding some of the terms in the model. If I think that there's something wrong with how you're understanding the term, I want to correct that or help you correct that, so that then when you do the Buddhism analysis response, you'll have that fixed. So the answer is be working on this week and next week. Any other questions? I've got to do something about this mirror thing. This is ridiculous. It's like I change the setup every week. Can't settle. Questions? Are we good then, everybody? Fantastic. Well, I'm going to sign out, and I hope you all have a great week. Enjoy the Buddhism reading, and let me know if you have any questions. Shoot them off by email, and I will catch you next week. See you later.